Good morning, everyone. I am Julian Davie of Alcantara, first year college from the BSCS course. And this is my report about ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt was a civilization of ancient North Africa, concentrated along the lower reaches of the Nile River. Situated in the place that is now the country Egypt, ancient Egyptian civilization followed prehistoric Egypt and coalesced around 3100 BC. The history of ancient Egypt occurred as a series of stable kingdoms separated by periods of relative instability known as intermediate periods. Long Kingdom of the Early Bronze Age, the Middle Kingdom of the Middle Bronze Age, and the New Kingdom of the Late Bronze Age. Egypt reached the pinnacle of his power. Pinnacle of his power in the New Kingdom, ruling much of Nubia and a sizable portion of Near East, after which it entered a period of slow decline. During the course of its history, Egypt was invaded or conquered by a number of foreign powers, including the Hyksos, the Libyans, the Nubians, the Assyrians, and the Achaemenid Persians, and the Macedonians under the command of Alexander the Great. The success of ancient Egyptian civilization came partly from its ability to adapt the conditions of the Nile River Valley for agriculture, pretending the predictable flooding and controlled irrigation. The fertile valley produced surplus crops, which support a more dense population, and social development and culture. With resources to spare, the administration sponsored mineral exploitation of the valley and surrounding desert regions, the early development of an independent writing system, the organization of collective construction and agricultural projects, trade with surrounding regions, and a military intended to assert Egyptian dominance. Ancient Egypt has left a lasting legacy. Its art and architecture were widely copied, and its antiquities carried off to far corners of the world. The monumental ruins have inspired the imagination of travelers and writers for centuries. A newfound respect for antiquities and excavations in the early modern period by Europeans and Egyptians led to the specific investigation of Egyptian civilization and a greater appreciation of its cultural legacy. Pre-dynastic period. In pre-dynastic and early dynastic times, the Egyptian climate was much less arid than it is today. Large regions of Egypt were covered in treed savanna and traversed by herds of grazing ungulates. Foliage and fauna were far more prolific in all environs, and the Nile region support large populations of waterfowl. Hunting would have been common for Egyptians, and this is also the period where many animals were first domesticated. By about 5500 BC, small tribes living in the Nile Valley had developed into a series of cultures demonstrating firm control of agriculture and animal husbandry, and identifiable by their pottery and personal items, such as combs, bracelets, and beads. The largest of these early cultures in upper southern Egypt was the Badarian culture, which probably originated in the western desert. It was known for its high-quality ceramics, stone tools, and its use of copper. Early Dynastic Period. The early dynastic period was approximately contemporary to the early Sumerian Akkadian civilization of Mesopotamia and of ancient Elam. The 3rd century BC Egyptian priest Manetho grouped the long line of kings from Menes to his own time into 30 dynasties, a system still used today. He began his official history with a king named Mene, or Menes in Greek, who was believed to have united the two kingdoms of Upper and Lower Egypt. The early dynastic period was approximately contemporary to the early Sumerian Akkadian civilization of Mesopotamia. Of the ancient era, the 3rd century BC Egyptian priest Manasseh grouped the long line of kings from Menes to his own time in the 30 dynasties, and systems still used today. He began his official history with a king named Mene, or Menes in Greek, who was believed to have united the two kingdoms of Upper and Lower Egypt. Old Kingdom. Major advances in architecture, art, and technology were made during the Old Kingdom, fueled by the increased agricultural productivity and resulting population, made possible by a well-developed central administration, and some of ancient Egypt's crowning achievements in Giza pyramids and Great Sphinx were constructed during the Old Kingdom. Under the direction of the vizier, state officials collected taxes, coordinated irrigation projects to improve crop yields, drafted methods to work on construction projects, and established a justice system to maintain peace and order. First intermediate period, after Egyptian central government collapsed, at the end of the Old Kingdom, the administration could no longer support or stabilize the country's economy. Regional governors could not rely on the king for help in times of crisis. In the ensuing food shortage and political disputes escalated into famines and small-scale civil wars. Yet, despite difficult problems, local leaders, owing nothing due to the king, used their newfound independence to establish a thriving culture in the provinces once in control of their own resources. The provinces became economy richer, which was demonstrated by larger and better burials among all social classes. Middle Kingdom. The reign of the Middle Kingdom restored the country's stability and prosperity, thereby stimulating a resurgence of art, literature, and monumental building projects. Mentuhotep II and his 11th dynasty successors ruled the Thebes, but the vizier Amenemhat I, upon assuming the kingship of the beginning of the 12th dynasty around 1985 BC, shifted the kingdom's capital to the city of Duno, located in Fayum. From it, the king of the 12th dynasty undertook a far-sighted land reclamation and irrigation scheme to increase agricultural output in the region. Moreover, the military reconquered territory in Nubia that was rich in quarries and gold mines, while laborers built a defensive structure in the eastern delta, called the Walls of the Ruler, to defend against foreign attack. Second Intermediate Period, and the Hyksos. Around 1785 BC, as the power of Middle Kingdom kings weakened, a Western Asian people called the Hyksos, who had already settled in the delta, seized control of Egypt and established their capital at Avaris, forcing the former central government to retreat to Thebes. The king was treated as a vassal and expected to pay tribute to Hyksos, or foreign rulers. They retained Egyptian models of government and identified as kings, thereby integrating Egyptian elements into their culture. They are other invaders introduced new tools and warfare into Egypt, most notably the composite bow and the horse-drawn chariot. New Kingdom. The New Kingdom pharaohs established a period of unprecedented prosperity by securing their borders and strengthening diplomatic ties with their neighbors, including the Mitanni Empire, Assyria, and Canaan. Military campaigns waged under Thutmose I and his grandson Thutmose III extended the influence of the pharaohs to the largest empire Egypt had ever seen. Beginning with Merneptah, the rulers of Egypt adopted the title of pharaoh. Between their reigns, Hatshepsut, a queen who established herself as pharaoh, launched many building projects, including restoration of temples damaged by the Hyksos and sent trading expeditions to Paul and the Sinai. When Thutmose III died, 4025 BC, Egypt had an empire extending from Nea in northwest Syria to the fourth cataract of the Nile in Nubia, cementing loyalties and opening access to critical imports such as bronze and wood. Third Intermediate Period. Following the death of Ramesses VI, 1078 BC, Smendes assumed authority over the northern part of the Egypt, ruling from the city of Tanis. South was effectively controlled by the high priest of Amun at Thebes, who recognized Mendes in chieftain of the settlers began increasing their autonomy. Libya's princes took control of the delta under Shonshek I in 945 BC, founding the so-called Libyan or Nabastite dynasty that would rule for some 200 years. Shonshek also gained control of southern Egypt by placing his family members in important priestly positions. Libyan control began to erode as a rival dynasty in the delta arose in Leontopolis, a coast cities threatened from south around 727. The Ocean King V invaded northward, seizing control of Thebes, and eventually the delta, which established the 25th dynasty. Wait, be right back. Kadahin ko na. Init sobra. Init. Alright, I'm back. Just drink some water. Ptolemaic period. In 332 BC, Alexander the Great conquered Egypt with little resistance from the Persians and was welcomed by Egyptians as a deliverer. The administration established by Alexander's successors, the Macedonian Ptolemaic Kingdom, was based on an Egyptian model and based in the new capital city of Alexandria. The city showcased the power and prestige of Hellenistic rule and became a seat of learning and culture. Headed the famous Library of Alexandria, the Lighthouse of Alexandria lit the way for the many ships that kept trade flowing through the city, as the Ptolemies made commerce and revenue-generating enterprises, such as papyrus manufacturing, their top priority. Roman period. Egypt became a province of the Roman Empire in 30 BC, following the defeat of Mark Antony, Ptolemaic Queen Cleopatra VII by Octavian, later Emperor Augustus, in the Battle of Actium. The Romans relied heavily on grain shipments from Egypt, and the Roman army, under the control of prefect appointed by the emperor, Grand rebellions strictly enforced the collection of heavy taxes and prevented attacks with bandits, which had become a notorious problem during the period. Alexandria became an increasingly important center of the trade route with the Orient, as exotic luxuries were in high demand in Rome. And now we will talk about life and death in Egypt. Life in Egypt. Daily life in Egypt revolved around the Nile and the fertile land along its banks. The yearly flooding of the Nile enriched the soil and brought good harvests and wealth to the land. The people of ancient Egypt built mud brick homes in villages and in the country. They grew some of their own food and traded in the villages for the food and goods they could not produce. Most ancient Egyptians worked as field hands, farmers, craftsmen, and scribes. A small group of people were nobles together. These different groups of people made up the population of ancient Egypt. Then, in ancient Egypt, to the ancient Egyptians, that was not the end of life, but only the beginning of the next phase in an individual's eternal journey. There was no word in the ancient Egyptian which corresponds to the concept of death, as usually defined as ceasing to live, since death was simply a transition to another phase of one's eternal existence. In fact, scholars claim that modern Egyptian Arabic word for death, al-maut, is the same as ancient Egyptian and is also used for mother, clearly linking the death experience with birth or more precisely, labor on an eternal plane. And now, I will show you some pictures from ancient Egypt before, yeah, something like that before. hmm This is the pyramid, Great Pyramid of Giza, I think. Yeah. And this is one of the tomb in the ancient Egypt. And lastly, this is the empire from the ancient Egypt before. And that's all. Hopefully you enjoy. And yeah, something like that.